So, welcome to everybody to this dialogue, which is delivering benefit through programs. It's called a dialogue because we want input from everybody. So, I'd like to kick off with asking each of the panelists to give a brief introduction. Mark, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hugo, thank you. Hello, everybody. My name's Mark Fulton.
I'm John Thorpe.
I'm Helen Winter.
Hello, everybody. My name's James Taylor.
Hi there, Neil White.
So the benefits and value SIG is working with the program management SIG, and this one is delivering benefit through programs.
I think probably most of the people in the audience will have different definitions ringing in their head when they think about programs. The one from MSP, which describes a program as a temporary and flexible organisation created to coordinate, direct and oversee the implementation of related projects and activities. And the aim is to deliver outcomes and benefits which are related to the organisation's strategic objectives. Typically, they'll have a lifespan of several years. So all in all, programs are really a combination of projects and activities, and they're created to change the way that things are done. I think it's widely recognised that if you've got that program management approach with that coordinated direction, management and delivery and a structured framework, it will help your organisation to achieve your strategic goals.
You know, so when we build a system, it does this, right? The people writing it define the benefits because they have an expectation that this will be used in this way and will produce a benefit. But it's actually the customer or the user that defines value. Because I think there are some good examples. Apple produced devices that sync up with each other. That's a capability. The benefit they see is seamless access to your information from their devices. The value we may get is easy and simple for me to stay connected. So that's a distinction between them. The value comes from the context of how it's used and the perception of value in the people who are using it. And that's the distinction between it. It's much harder to measure. And I would say that it's the part that's given the least attention.
Our first question for our panelists is, what do organisations currently do to get benefits from programs?
UK government estimate that 90% of benefits are not delivered by projects, despite best practice governance guidance and standards. The focus tends to be on delivering the outputs rather than the stuff that happens after the outputs.
I see quite often is programs are commissioned without benefits being properly identified.
What do people do at the moment that you think works? And what do they do that doesn't work?
Everyone agrees, yes, these benefits are great, it's worth doing. And then they don't always then revisit it as they go on. Sometimes the scope kind of changes and people don't think to revisit. Their focus isn't on the benefits afterwards, it's on getting it over the line.
Remembering the cultural aspect is an important part of benefits realisation and management as well, I think.
There's a comment in the chat. Jacob says he established a benefits management plan that purposefully didn't deliver benefits while the program team was still in place. And I'd say if you aren't trying to at least forecast whether you're going to get your benefits with lead and proxy measures, then you can't make any changes to the program to improve your benefits realization. You're simply flying blind with your first plan.
You've got to plan that benefits realization in beyond the end of the program and make sure that you can deliver those benefits and the value.
Benefits need a midwife to bring them into the world.
The program is the first part of an investment. The resulting asset is the bit that delivers the benefits, and that has to be managed.
I think that we spend a lot of time working on the plans and thinking how we're going to do things. Plans are great, but when it comes to realization, ultimately it's the users.
I think having a clear success criteria upfront and understanding the scope upfront is really important. The next thing is really around making sure how you're going to measure the benefits. And then a clear theme is around stakeholder engagement.
So if you're doing it with them, there's more chance you're going to get pull for the use. There's more chance you're going to have a really active stakeholder engagement story. It's more chance you're going to get money from whoever to help pull. So I mean, if you haven't got a plan, how can you expect to succeed?
But If we follow the sort of APMG guidance, the number of products to get to that final point where you're providing useful information seems to the people who've got to input the data at this stage almost overwhelming. We're about to engage in a debate about what is the minimum framework we can put in, and we're probably going to suggest that the mapping activity, especially in the business cases, really need to be done comprehensively because that provides a spine of information. What would the panel think in terms of a minimum level of framework?
It's not that complicated, but we make it much more complicated than it is. There's three things that we need to do this. You have to get leadership engaged throughout. They have to be personally accountable for the value from this. You've got to involve the victims from day one. You have to come up with actions.
I've seen it go wrong is nobody actually owns what the changes need to be.
The theory of change for me is closer to what I would call an investment logic map. The changes we're going to make, the benefits we're going to realise through making those changes, and the issues and change drivers that they're seeking to address.
What are the barriers to implementing what we should be doing?
Business, technology, organization, process, and people. All of those things have to be considered. How are you going to measure the outcomes? How are you going to measure the contributions? How are you going to track the assumptions? How are you going to measure the initiatives of proceedings? So it's metrics that have to apply to those. The unwillingness of business leaders to get engaged and stay engaged. They own this stuff and they abdicate their responsibility.
James, can you add to that?
I think there's certainly a barrier in terms of programs at the outset setting its position that is perhaps exaggerated, having the sort of forums where you can speak to people who are experienced practitioners. That's probably the opposite of a barrier. When people are putting a benefits plan together, they don't always take into account the actual environment of the business, and if there are unintended consequences that you haven't foreseen, obviously you need to manage those, but don't necessarily be put off at the first sign of that happening.
That almost seems to be coming full circle to getting stakeholders involved. Do we find barriers to getting stakeholders involved in the first place? I know in a recent contract that I've done, the part of the business that I was working in had a reputation for just going ahead and doing things.
You have to take the time and effort to involve the people who actually understand and have to be part of this journey from the beginning. If you don't involve them and keep them involved, you won't be doing it well and they won't accept it.
I'm just interested really in the panel's opinions that if we apply benefits management and the principles of benefits management at COP, what would be happening now?
And that's a really good question. Would it look different? In many of the areas that I've worked in, there is an issue whereby there isn't clarity as to what the benefits are or should be. So it's actually quite difficult to design something. And what's happening in the net zero space is there are going to be so many people coming with so many really wacky, great ideas that we need to have a process of dealing with that long list, creating a short list, and then turning that into things that we work on together. To me, there are three things. One is about competence, the other is about motivation, and the other is about influence. Very often you find that people are in a space whereby they're doing what they think is the right thing to do, but they don't know what good looks like. And very often people know what they're doing isn't the right thing to do, but they're not held to account for doing it wrong.
As we run through the evening with a debate that's been exciting and didn't want to stop, I'm going to have to call this particular debate to a close. Keep in touch, everybody. Thank you very much.